Hello, Americans. I'm Kent McNall. It's Constitution time. And boy, is it ever on this Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, Election Day +1. And as I sit here talking to you right now, we really don't know what the results of the election will be, at least at the very top. But before I jump into that, a quick technical note about the show. We have been having some difficulty with the show that is probably related to our internet connections here, which are being upgraded tomorrow. So we won't have a Constitution time tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to get more than 10 or 11 minutes into the show today. But I'll talk fast so we can get in as much as we can. As I said, and as we all know, right now, the election at the top is still very much in doubt, and it can go either way. Seems to be going one way, and then it seems to be going back the other. There's still a path for either of the major candidates to achieve their goal and become president again, or for the first time. I have to say that I have been very happy watching our democracy in process during this election process. Not with every single thing that's happened, but one of the things I really, really like is the cool hand on the tiller that our states represent. The people responsible for running those elections have seemed very steadfast in their convictions to count every vote and to not let anything get in the way of that. It was certainly unreasonable to expect, with everything that is going on, with everything that's changed and the many different rules that were put in place for the election, that we could get the results in less than 24 hours, or even 48 or 72 hours. But we're actually very close to that. And I think that there's no question that, especially the battleground states that have the most focus on them, are pursuing with diligence and under the law the process that needs to be followed to elect our next president. The rhetoric has also been tamer than I actually thought it would be, especially if we were in the situation that we're in right now, where it is a very close, tight race. I talked in one of our episodes about the different scenarios that might happen with the election. The only really clean scenarios were landslides, and there's no landslide here. That means it's a tight race. And that means that some shenanigans might take place in court, with declarations of the counts should be stopped, et cetera, et cetera. And that gives us another opportunity to see a real difference between the major candidates, the people that are running for the office, in their approach. And it's unfortunate to see that, but I still feel it's happening to a lesser extent than I feared that it might. And I think that the same can be said for roughhousing out there, or violence. There's been some reports I've heard, but not very many, and I hope that it remains that way. I hope that calm prevails and that there are no escalations that happen no matter what the result of the election is. One thing that I've become very aware of is that regardless of what happens, I have empathy for the folks that will not be on the winning side, whether it's the folks that see things the way I do or the many, many friends that see it another way. The way that I have felt over the last 4 years, I would not want anyone else to feel. And I think that's what really is at stake here, is that on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, they really feel that our country is in trouble in one way or another. I've expressed the way that I feel our democracy is in trouble. Well, folks that think differently from me, they may feel the same way for different reasons. And I care about these folks. I care about my friends and the many people that we spend a lot of time with who are on the other side philosophically of these issues. And I don't want them to feel the way I felt for the last 4 years. On the other hand, I don't want to feel the way I felt the last 4 years either. And I think that if we just reach across to each other as Americans and have empathy and realize that there are more things that can unite us than divide us, not only can we get through this, but we can get through it hopefully in a way that allows us to move forward again. One of the things that seems clear right now is that whichever way the top result goes, we will have a situation where we have a divided government again. And one of the real causes that I have is to try to get us out of this treadmill that once every 8 years or so, one part or the other gets elected, maybe has all three of the branches of government under their control for a brief 2-year period of time, and can maybe get one or two things done. That's an awful pace of progress. And as it stands right now, we face that prospect again, that the divided government will probably barely get anything done, and the only way that will happen is by proclamation, executive order, etc. And whatever happens with the results of the election, I hope that we can continue to move forward and work towards a better system, a more refined system, so that that's not where we, the American people, end up stuck. That we really truly demand from our representatives, the people that we're electing right now, that they represent us and not just their party and not just their leadership within the government, and that they work together to get the things that need to be done. Infrastructure, healthcare, all the things that we really care about, and stop focusing only on those things that divide and get away from this absolute partisanship. I do feel we have a somewhat better chance with one of the candidates than the other, but many would disagree with me. That's what really needs to be accomplished here. I'm looking forward, once the turmoil of this election is over, and potentially continuing with Constitution time and continuing to talk about solutions. And there are solutions, and many of us, whichever side we're on, see those solutions the same way. Things like term limits. We cannot feel helpless in the face of the system that has been set up to try to keep we the people out of the equation. We are not helpless, and we're showing that right now with this vote and with the turnout and with the overwhelming passion that we Americans are showing for our system of government and for our ability to change. As I said, I'm very much hopeful that in the coming days and weeks, yes, there will be court cases. Yes, there will be challenges. Some of them may be legitimate. Most of them may not be. But I hope that we work towards this together in peace, and that we get the resolution that we deserve and move on as we deserve. One thing that I've also been very interesting, it's been very interesting to watch, is the way the media is handling this very unusual situation. And it is an unusual situation. In 2000, we had an election that took a month to decide, but that was somewhat different in that there was only one issue really in one place, and it was a very specific issue, and it came up, went through the court system, went to the Supreme Court, and was decided there, and did in fact decide the election. But I do not recall being election day plus 24 or longer without knowing who won the election other than that. So it is an unusual situation. And it has been really interesting to channel flip to watch the major media stations report on this and talk about it. And some of the discussions have not been what you would expect from this network or this cable network. And so that's been an interesting aspect of watching what's going on. And I'm sure that you're finding it the same way. Of course, it's going at a snail's pace, and none of us want to watch TV 24 hours a day, yet we're drawn to it like a magnet because we want to know what's going on. And we're obviously have a lot at stake. So I can't really conjecture one way or the other that would be fraught with danger. what's going to happen, and plus I know not much more about it than anybody else does, if at all, probably less. So I won't go there. But I will say that I'm very optimistic that whatever happens, America will march on as it always does. But we do have things, folks, that we need to address. We really do. No matter what the outcome of this election is, we have things we need to address. And we as Americans need to roll up our sleeves and get to work on it. We can't hold it off at arm's length. We can't only deal with it between elections. We've got to get involved. Our voices have to be heard. We have elected representatives. They are supposed to be representing us. We have to make sure that they are representing us, and that we have to make sure they know what we want. Whether we do that individually or as part of a group, part of a movement, it's time for us to get involved. There is one thing that I've been very relieved by in the last 12 to 18 hours maybe. I found it very interesting because I personally made some contributions to some campaigns around the country, and was dismayed by the incredible number of emails I got every single day from those campaigns wanting more money. Should I be shocked by that? Probably not. But the emails were, at first, well, maybe, and I still don't know, maybe they were from Russia, because they had very strange subjects like, it's over, my candidate lost, it's hopeless, send more money. And of course, you hope and believe that if you click that link and send the money, it's going where you want it to, but I started wondering about that as well. Well, that finally, it didn't stop, but it greatly, it was 90% less. Maybe I got 10 of those emails today. And so that is actually a relief. I can actually sort through my email now and see things that I actually want to see, and not just people asking for more money. Some of these paradigms that have grown up around campaigns and around campaign contributions are really difficult to handle. And I wonder if they'll be long-term trends, or if the campaigns will get the message, hey, people don't like that. If we're good enough to give you money once, be happy with that and don't harass us every single day. Some of the campaigns, literally, I was getting 10 emails a day from them. So that's not something that I would care to repeat. People are really worried, really worried. Talked to lifelong friend of mine today, and he said, why do we have so much fraud in our elections? And I shared with him my belief that I don't think we have very much fraud in our elections. I do think that America has been the gold standard of elections for the world. Tarnished, maybe, in the last couple of elections, but still we've been the gold standard. But there are many types of fraud in elections that include voter suppression, which I think is something we've really got to work on as a country, and that our record is not as sterling there. And there is occasional fraud. I could recall a couple of instances of fraud. There was someone in South Carolina in the last election that was doing something inappropriate to get thousands of people signed up that shouldn't have been signed up. I don't recall the exact, but it does happen. But I cannot recall in my lifetime voter fraud that affected the outcome of a national election. And I cannot recall either of the campaigns accusing the other of any kind of voter fraud, or accusing the other party of voter fraud. But, if you really think about it, there was, just recently a couple of guys were, it wasn't voter fraud directly, but they were making robocalls to, again, suppress the vote. That's definitely a type of fraud. But my friend was worried about that. And, I hope that none of us end up worrying in any way that our elections were fair and free and handled correctly by the states. And they are, the elections are handled by the states. It is up to the states to set their own laws and rules for their elections. It is up to them how they conduct it. And there is nothing in the Constitution that says the votes all must be counted on election day. In fact, that would have been antithetical back in the day because everything was completely on paper, completely manual, and whatever method the states had for, electing their electors could take far longer than a day, and more than likely did. So these are things that, again, call for patience. I want to send out some kudos to my oldest, because even though I was calmly talking on Constitution time about the need for patience and it will just take longer than election night, when the moment came, I didn't really live up to that standard. Got a little nervous and started spouting off a bit, and my oldest reminded me, hey, everybody said it's going to take longer than election night. And it has, and probably will take a couple more days yet. So be patient, Americans. We will get there. And whatever the outcome, whatever the result is, please be resolved to march forward as Americans together. And this is not, certainly I know there will be celebration by whoever wins, but this is not a time in any way, shape, or form for gloating. We have to have compassion for the folks that aren't on the winning side, whether that's your team or the other team, and realize how they're feeling about that. They may feel just as threatened or bad as you have felt in the past. So if we reach across and work with each other, we can make the things happen that need to happen, because changes are needed. And we'll talk a lot more about that on Constitution Time in upcoming shows. Okay, I think the show is still transmitting, so I should quit while I'm ahead. However you're spending this time, please enjoy it. Keep it on the process, and keep yourself safe. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.